Hey, everybody. I just wanted to say ahead of this episode that it ends rather abruptly. And that is because there was an error with the recording files. We were trying a different program for recording because Rashawn has still been having problems despite getting her hard drive replaced. And the new program did not quite do the job. So you are still getting over 2 hours of content on this, and I'm going to call that a win, but it isn't the full episode, and I do apologize for that. I am so sorry, everybody. I have had nothing but technical problems everywhere I look, and nobody is more sick of it than me. But hang in there, and we are really going to try and make sure this does not happen again next time. I hope otherwise you can still enjoy the episode.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled. A Song of Ice and Fire 2, the co-host switcheroo, the rewatchening. Return to Westeros, HBO Sorta Spoiled edition. Uncut, uncensored, perhaps a little bit too bloody for TV. Bringing you some probably future great hits from 2022. Do not call in with your requests. In this episode, Rashawn and I are going to be talking about Hot D, aka House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 1, Heirs of the Dragon. Also, Hot D. In this episode, we get introduced to some more Targaryens who are as dramatic as usual, and a lady dies, and another lady gets made the heir. Welcome to Some Spoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
So, everyone, a couple of things I want to mention off the top. First of all, if you are confused, I put up a poll in several different places asking folks whether they wanted us to take a break from the books to cover the show, and we got an overwhelming sure. So I decided to do that. And when I say sure, I mean I put an option in the poll. It was either absolutely, the books can wait, no, fuck HBO, or I just like your voices a lot and want to hear you talk. And that one seemed to really be the one that was most of the landslide. We just wanted to listen to your show. But second after that was the books can wait. So here we are.
Oh.
We had to take a little bit of a break because Rashawn needed to have some time.
I did, and I appreciate everybody's patience, especially coming on the heels of my computer being out of commission, which caused us to miss a couple of recordings. So it feels like, to me, we haven't done a Saturday Song of Ice and Fire recording in about a month.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
So we are welcoming, coming back to Westeros in multiple ways.
Exactly. And it makes some sense to me to come back from such a big break and then be like, all right, well, we're just gonna do the show now. So okay, first episode, it broke records. HBO's most watched series premiere of all time.
That's what they're saying. 10 million people tuned in.
Yeah, which is funny because I didn't have any problem accessing the episode. And usually, do you remember how bad the server issues were and everything before? They must have been prepared.
Yeah. I saw some people say that they couldn't. I saw a couple of different people say that they couldn't watch it. It kept crashing and all that stuff. Yeah. So I'm not sure if where those people are. I don't know, because I have Facebook friends from all over the world. I didn't pay
Yeah.
attention whether like maybe it was overseas or what. But
Yeah, I also like started the episode probably like 8 or 10 minutes after it really started, so I maybe just gave it enough time that it was over its issues. I don't know.
Oh, that's kind of smart. Sort of sneaking in after everybody's been waiting in line.
And when I was talking about covering the show, I was talking to Owen about whether or not it was something I wanted to do, because as a lot of you know, I wasn't really particularly excited for this show. I felt so like burned and salty at Game of Thrones ending that I was just over it. And I was talking to Owen about it and just saying, I'm sort of on the fence here about what to do. I think I'll make a poll. And we had very differing viewpoints on what the overall reception of the show is going to be. Owen thought it was going to flop because everybody was so angry about Game of Thrones they didn't want anymore.
Oh, yeah, no.
And I was like, I do not see that happening. First of all, they are pouring so much marketing into this that even people who maybe weren't that into Game of Thrones could get hooked. Mm-hmm. And secondly, if anything, Game of Thrones ending so badly makes people want to wash the taste out of their mouth. Right.
I have a counterpoint.
Okay.
That I keep forgetting because of my well-curated social media bubble. There are a lot of people who had no problem with the way Game of Thrones ended.
We're not going to talk about them.
Right? I think we forget that they exist. I think everybody, was as disgusted as we were. Mm-hmm. And then I stumble into the wild, on like a, HBO public post or some shit. And there are just thousands of people talking about how satisfying everything was and how they can't wait to be back. And I'm just like, word?
What is that like? Oh my God. That is so, I saw a meme today from a Game of Thrones centric page that said, I really want to enjoy the show, but it's hard to do it when I know that Bran still becomes king.
Oh my God, I saw something like that too. Paul fucking, he's famous. How do you say his name? Feige? He tweeted something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. What did you think of this episode?
So, like you, I am all over Al Gore's internet talking about how fuck George Martin and fuck this show and fuck HBO. And then there I was, like everybody else, with my clown mask on, watching this shit. Couldn't wait for this shit to start. When it opens, I got chills.
Ooh.
It was just like, oh, wait. Oh my God, we're back. I didn't realize how excited I was going to be. So I'm just going to be very transparent about that. Overall, I really, really enjoyed this episode. I was concerned that I would need constant reference to characters and families that I know from the GOT version, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. I thought that, I'm not going to really be able to connect with any of these characters because I don't know them and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't have any problems on those lines.
That's good. Cool.
I thought that it was beautiful to watch. I thought the dragons looked fucking bananas.
Yeah, they did look really good.
I'm not familiar with Matt Smith. I know that he was like a doctor on Doctor Who, but I never watched, so I don't know his work at all. I enjoyed him. I like Patty Constantine. I enjoyed him. There was the moment TM that I think we should probably just discuss up front.
Okay.
Because I know I saw you had some really strong feelings about that. But overall, I really, really liked it, and I'm really I'm into it.
All right. Well, that's good because I thought it was fine, mm-hmm, but it was not. I was not, as you guys all know, particularly excited for it. I was interested. I got more excited as I reread Fire and Blood. I keep saying reread. I hadn't read Fire and Blood. I keep thinking I did because I read World of Ice and Fire.
I just found out that Fire and Blood was a thing that happened this is based on.
You just found out? We talked about that.
No, I have been, every time we talk about what this has been based on, I have been thinking of The World of Fire and Blood.
Oh, so you've been doing the same thing I was doing. I got
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Okay.
and I forgot that there were actually like 2 little like novels that
Mhm.
came out, you know.
Well,
Did you
only
read?
one. There's
I
the
thought it
second
was
one
2.
coming.
Oh, the second one didn't come out yet.
I don't think so, no.
Oh shit! I was about to ask you, did you read both? But now I guess I don't have to ask you that.
Maybe it did, and I'm talking out of my ass, but I was pretty sure it hadn't. Usually if there's a sequel to something and you finish listening to it on Audible, it automatically pulls up the next one and is like, do you want to buy this one now? And I didn't get that from it, but it may just be not set up.
So this story from this series is covered in the one that you read, though.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
cool.
definitely. Because this is the big one. This is the Dance of Dragons. This story came before everything that he sets up around it, which is the rest of Fire and Blood, basically. Fire and Blood starts with the conquering of Westeros by the Targaryens, like from the very beginning of their reign.
Okay.
So he backed it up quite a bit because the Dance with Dragons was a story that he had published. I don't remember I think it was a short story in a book called Dangerous Women. And it was called The Princess and the Queen. And he essentially published that as its short story and then expanded on it even further and put it into Fire and Blood. So, and I was not aware that that's how it went, but Miles was particularly irritated because he thought he was getting like all new material in Fire and Blood, and he got to a point when he realized he was rereading the same story he'd already read, and he got real mad about it.
So this series is based on a much more fleshed out story than I thought, because one of the things that had been running in my mind, I think I even mentioned it to you the last time we talked about maybe doing this, is that I have the world of, you know, what is it? The World of Fire and Blood, the big, beautiful.
The World of Ice and Fire.
World of Ice and Fire. I have that, and, you know, skimmed through it and really like focused on how beautiful it was and read a lot of like the family trees and a lot about the individual houses, but didn't read it front to back.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I remembered was each of the bits that I did read, they were like just overviews, you know? So I had been wondering all this time, how are they going to flesh out that into a whole fucking, you know what I mean? And so I've just in the last like couple of days learned about the Fire and Blood book, and that is where a lot of this is coming from.
Yeah, this, it's, the way it's done in Fire and Blood is as if you are being told by a maester who has compiled a history.
Oh.
So it is not the kind of prose where there's dialogue and, you know, it's not like set in that way.
Gotcha.
It is a man saying, according to such and such records, we have information that it happened this way. Of course, that is slightly contradicted by the account of so-and-so who was also there. And he says that it went like this.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's like the most central parts of the story everybody agrees on, but the things that sort of diverge are the motivations behind why people did things the way that they did and the true feelings of the people who did what they did. So you'd have one person being like, he decided that he would stick to his word because he was an honorable man. And then there's another person who's like, he wanted to get rich. He would have in a second. He did not care.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
especially
I found it really compelling to read.
And so that I guess that means that the show has like a lot of wiggle room.
Yes, yep,
you know, so
exactly.
So even having read it, you're not really sure like what motivation the show is going to focus on. Like, are they going to say he was honorable, or are they going to say that no, he would have sold his soul for $1?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's fun.
Yeah, that's something that I'm actually really interested in, is to see what they're going to choose to have. Because one of the funny it's so infuriating in a way, but it's also really, really funny. The maester who's like kind of compiling this more central history is pulling from several works that are like officially written down by maesters who were advisors to the kings at that time. And then there's this court jester named Mushroom who pretended to be a lot more simple-minded, and thus the lords would drop their guard around him and just talk about things frankly because they didn't think he understood.
And then this motherfucker went and wrote a tell-all.
He wrote a tell-all.
That is fantastic.
He went to Tatler and TMZ and was like, let me tell you.
He was all in the DMs of the shade room like, y'all.
And so what's the thing with his accounting is that everything has a lot more sex in it. It's so much more horny. Every version is like, oh yeah, then they had an orgy and she fucked a horse.
Good God.
And, you know, like that kind of thing. But then after you kind of wave away those ridiculous parts of it, there'll be moments where he's like, oh yeah, that wasn't the way that happened. I was in the room and you're like, actually his version makes this make a lot more sense. So there are times where you're like, that did not happen, Mushroom, you stop it. And then there are times when you're like, is Mushroom the only one telling the truth here? Because everybody sounds like they're lying. Like there's a celebration in a town and one of the maesters is like, it was celebrated with much fasting and praying. And Mushroom is like, they got drunk as fuck. They got drunk as fuck and everybody woke up pregnant. And I was like, that sounds more true, I have to admit.
This is delightful.
Yeah, I found it really fun. The guy who does the narration for the audiobook is really good. He does everything in such a way that you kind of feel like, okay, I'm gonna stop here. And then an inflection in his voice will start off a sentence so that you know by the end of the sentence he's gonna be like, but. So you have to wait and be like, okay, tell me the thing. But he does do this thing where he sort of interrupts himself all the time in the way that, you know, it sounds very academic to me. So he'll be like, and he's sort of, it's like he was going to say something else and he says the thing and it pairs extremely well with a refrain often that comes up in this book, which is, it should not be thought that. Basically, I know we said that she was a huge cunt earlier, but don't believe that she was a cunt all the time. Like a cunt occasionally. And I recommend it. I think that people will enjoy it. I thought it might be so dry that I would tune it out and lose track, and that didn't really happen. So yeah, that was what kind of got me excited for watching it after all, because previously I had read Princess and the Queen, which is much less fleshed out. And mostly had forgotten the details of it. And I am really interested to see what version of certain scenes they're going to decide to go with, because I feel like Song of Ice and Fire is we're meant to take the like less sexy version, but if we're doing an HBO thing, right, we're gonna do the mushroom,
right?
You know, like I don't know.
I will say, in the weeks leading up to the premiere, you know, when the press really started churning it out, I kept seeing this headline that was something along the lines of how the show was going to have like less, I think, sexual violence and less like sex scenes, but be more like gory and bloody. So now hearing that there are these sort of different versions of these historic events that, you know, you can pick and choose, I'm really curious as well to see what HBO is going to lean into.
Yeah, I am, because I think I shared a quote where they said something about how they're going to have fewer sex scenes, but they're not going to shy away from sexual assault, which basically made it sound like the proportion of sexual assault is just going to be higher compared to like consensual sex. But I think it was Ryan Reisman who said that quote was sort of taken out of context and wasn't actually like what they meant. And I didn't go and double check on that. So I believe him. That's probably true. You know, they always pull shit out of context. Yeah. It's just wild sometimes. You could say like, I like waffles better than pancakes, like that tweet. And the headline is, Natasha states that pancakes are trash and you're like pancakes. And that's like what they decide to say about you. Yeah, I am still very concerned about it.
Tell me why.
So, okay, you talked about the thing, the moment.
Yeah.
So you said you saw I had some things to say about that. And I was talking about it in the Discord, but you're not really in that much.
No.
You saw it? Or what?
No, you on Facebook. You said you replied to somebody's comment and said, "Oh, don't, believe me, I've got things to say about that."
Okay. So yeah, let's just get this out of the way. This episode has the death of Queen Emma, who died in childbirth in Fire and Blood. That's canon. But they have her die via this really horrific C-section.
So that's not part of it in the book.
That is not her story.
Interesting.
That C-section did happen, but it happened to a character like a generation or two before her. I think it was Queen Alyssa. I'm going to look it up now. So they basically, in the Fire and Blood, what happens to Queen Emma, she is really not a big deal. Her character isn't talked about all that much, and her death in childbirth is just said in a kind of, she didn't make it. There's not detail. And it's taken as like probably she either got a fever or she had blood loss or something.
That's interesting.
The actual C-section, so I'm looking at Queen Alyssa, who was married to Lord Rhaegar Baratheon. This is how it goes in the book. Lord Rhaegar, we are told, could not bear to look upon his wife, nor could he find the words until the king took him roughly by the arm and shook him. "Save my son," Rhaegar told the maester. Then he wrenched free and fled the room again. Master Kiri bowed his head and sent for his blades. In many of the accounts that have come down to us, we are told that Queen Alyssa woke from her sleep before the maester could begin. Though racked by pain and violent convulsions, she cried tears of joy to see her children there. When Alice, because she had older children, it's not, Queen Emma, she only had the one surviving child. When Alysanne told her what was about to happen, Alyssa gave her assent. "Save my babe," she whispered. "I will go see my boys again. The crone will light my way." It is pleasant to believe these were the queen's last words. Sad to say, other accounts tell us her grace died without waking when Maester Kiri opened her belly. On one point, all agree. Alysanne held her mother's hand in her own from start to finish until the babe's first squall filled the room. Even if we're going to take the C-section that did not happen to Emma and have it happen to her, why did we have to make it be that she is conscious, fighting back, held down, screaming for them to stop, and uninformed about what is happening to her? I would really like to fucking know. And I am genuinely livid about this, guys. This is not starting things off on the foot that I want, because this is exactly the kind of absolute bullshit exploitation of the pain of women that we saw in the previous fucking series. And they are doing that shit out of the gate for no reason again. And I am disgusted. There is no fucking reason for it. That scene is so disturbing and upsetting because they have him not explain to her what's going on. She is wide awake. He gives them the go ahead to murder her. And granted, she was going to die anyway. That's according to the maester. But why wouldn't you involve your wife in this? Why wouldn't you talk to her? Like, the whole original account is that they explained what was going on and she understood because she's a grown fucking woman who's had children before and she knows the risks and what could happen. And they have this whole thing as if she's a child who simply doesn't understand, or an animal. And he isn't even bothering to explain anything to her.
That's a really, really, really shocking thing to hear. Because obviously I didn't read the book, so I have no idea what the account of is in the books. I was curious if this was HBO creation or if this whole scene was pulled from the books. And then to learn that it was something that happened to another character that's being sort of like pushed onto this one is upsetting. But more upsetting is to hear the changes they made. This account in the book sounds like it was still horrific, but it allows, what did you say her name?
Alyssa.
Alyssa is the queen.
Yeah, the one from
allows her to be a part of the decision making. It, lets her decide to sacrifice herself knowingly, which then also really quickly in the book, the king is not even there. He runs away.
She isn't like married to a king. She's married to a lord, but yeah, he runs.
But yeah, the father, the husband of this baby that's basically going to kill her, leaves the room. He doesn't even stay for it.
Exactly.
Right.
He's like so guilty over what he's agreeing to. He can't face it.
So, and then the show instead makes this entire moment emotionally kind of about King Viserys then. And just sort of removes Queen Emma from it entirely, which, is a bummer.
It's such a bummer, you guys.
I was watching and, my reaction to the scene, because I didn't have the greater context, was, this is like really fucking brutal and horrible to watch, like the whole handling of it was just like, why, her confusion and not knowing what's about to happen, that she isn't told, that she doesn't get like a say. And I'm watching it, I'm like, all right, so the show is clearly trying to do a thing here. Right. They're using this moment to illustrate the sort of, I guess, lack of power that women have in this system.
Right.
And also to illustrate to us in the most like sort of grotesque manner how little real value the life of a woman holds in this world, right? So I'm watching it and I'm just like, you're doing too much, but okay, I see like what you're trying to say here. And one of the things I thought too was there's a quiet moment when she's in the tub before she goes into labor, where she's telling Viserys that this is it. Yeah. Right? I'm not doing this anymore. And she talks about how she's lost 5 children in twice as many years. And I thought that moment, that declaration, that statement of what's been happening to her body in the last 10 years, I thought was like horrific enough on its own. Yeah. If anyone stopped to listen to what she had just fucking told us, that she has been risking her life with these pregnancies multiple times over the last several years. And then apologizing for her inability to produce a son. But then also has enough or has had enough to be like, I'm not doing this anymore. And when I watched the scene of the childbirth, I could not get that out of my brain. That she had told him, this is your last chance.
Yeah.
And wondering to myself, how much did that play, in his willingness? Even though, to be fair, I think, like you said, the Maester is pretty much like, she's not going to survive either way. But I couldn't help but wonder, like, him knowing this is literally it. This is it.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. Wow.
I just find this so deeply disappointing. This is just, like I said, the exact shit that they were pulling that made me so angry. Yeah. And they are doing it immediately. And for what? Genuinely. Yeah. When I had quite an argument with somebody on Twitter about this yesterday. And the assertion they kept making was that it's meant to underline how helpless women are in this system and what like little value their lives hold. We fucking know. We know that already. We do not need this kind of like creepy voyeuristic exaggeration of the actual canon text. To be informed. We are fucking aware. And the idea that we have to, like, at one point they were talking about the way it's intercut with the battle scene, and like it wouldn't have been enough of a payoff if she just died naturally. And I'm like, you are just telling me a woman screaming and bleeding out from a complication of a natural birth is not quote, enough of a payoff that we have to have her unwillingly cut open, alive and conscious? That's what you're telling me? That isn't necessary for the birthing bed to be a battlefield. It just is anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. It
And
just
now
is.
you have to rob her entirely of all of her agency. And also, I find it really interesting that in the original text, she's like holding her mother's hand, because that is a space for women, and men can't handle that shit. Her husband runs away.
Mm-hmm.
And so her mother, who is another woman who has also had a lot of births go wrong, is the one standing by her. And because this is a moment of them sharing this fear and pain and loss, but no, we have to have her husband, who is robbing her of any choice, not even giving her the dignity of an explanation in her last moments. And I'm then supposed to look at this king with like any sort of compassion or interest after this changes his entire personality to me.
I'm really curious if this was supposed to, and like, you know, I don't know, it's one episode in, but considering his sort of 180 that he does around the obsession of having a son and then coming to terms with the fact that his heir is going to be his daughter, I'm wondering if that entire scene is supposed to just be in service to him coming to this sort of realization.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know if that's the intent. I don't know if that's what that was supposed to be, but it definitely made me question, like, is he, and now again, to hear that these are choices that the writers made, that don't exist. And again, I'm sure the series was going to have a lot of shit that isn't in canon, because the canon seems like to be such kind of a weird thing, especially with you telling me that there are like conflicting accounts within the canon. So I'm sure the show is going to just be like all over the place. But this is a particularly interesting choice that they made that begs like a question. Like, but why though?
Yeah, there was an
why
interview
this?
where one of the showrunners tried to claim that he wanted to draw attention to choice with women and Roe v. Wade, and I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, what now?
I don't buy that shit one bit.
Yeah.
Like that, it just, I just, they have no trust. I have no trust in anything that they say regarding caring about women.
Right.
That's where I'm at.
I guess I couldn't really, because I got to like beware of spoilers and shit. But like, I know the D&Ds are not involved in this whatsoever.
They are not.
I think I've read that George Martin is heavily involved in this. Mm-hmm. More so than he was towards the end of, you know, the second half of Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. So it is curious to me, like clearly he signed off on this, thought that this was important enough to be included to, you know, switch around the narrative a little bit. And I just end up circling back to begging the question, like, but why though?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think the answer to the why is, you know, really honing. Yeah, that's exactly the word I was going to use. Like spectacle, and also a sort of lack of imagination.
Yes.
Of what we can make spectacle, and even like pain and even suffering, you know, and heartbreak and terrible things that happen to women. How to do that, how to write that, how to show that without also being exploitative. And they just have not gotten that down.
They sure have not.
You know, it's like, if we get into when we get into the episodes, you know, when we get to the City Watch in that moment, right? Mm-hmm. There's you can see that they picked, at least to me, it felt very much like, hey, we're going to show all this horrible stuff. You know, we're hacking off heads and hacking off arms, and we're castrating people right on the street. Mm-hmm. We're going to make sure we zoom in on and make the castration like a big part of what's happening. Mm-hmm. So that when people start to hurl accusations at us, we can be like, but we showed you a guy getting his dick cut off, though.
And I mean, all of that, too, is definitely canon. Daemon Targaryen was out there fucking cutting hands off and dicks off.
Right,
And shit.
but
He
I'm
was
talking about
on
like
it,
the
but
show
yeah.
choosing to show it in the way that they did.
Sure.
That City Watch, man, they was like the fucking police. Like they was like,
Yeah, that was
rolling.
literally yelled ACAB at the screen.
I was about to say it could be like all gold cloaks are bastards. Like I said the same thing.
ACAB.
How would you write that? Like AGCAB?
AGCAB.
It doesn't roll off the tongue, does it?
No good. But yeah.
Swab. There it is.
How?
Quab. Like Quab. City Watch are bastards. A Quab.
Oh my God. A Quab. Oh, babe, that's... Let me open my notes here and put in a quab as a postcard idea because, yeah, that's going to have to be a thing. Okay. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way off the top because you guys know the kind of trepidation I have had coming back into this universe. They don't have male showrunners on this show again. I don't know if
they don't have male showrunners.
They don't have any female showrunners.
Oh shit, no.
And I don't know if they have any female writers or how, but it doesn't feel like anything has changed in this regard. And the exploitative nature of what they do with women, what you said about lack of imagination, that's exactly how I feel about it. The idea, not only is it just like a lack of imagination, but there's like the people defending this who seem weirdly invested to me in needing this to be how it went in a way that I'm like, why don't you think about that for a second? Why did it have to be like this? They seem to really think that if you didn't make it a moment where she's robbed of all agency, it wouldn't have the same impression on your audience and it wouldn't matter to them the same way. And I think that is particularly upsetting. The idea that like we can't sympathize with a woman being used as a breeder and worn out until she dies unless she is absolutely and 100% completely victimized at the end of it. Mm-hmm. It can't, because the whole like the birthing bed is a battlefield. The men out there in this tourney are choosing to be there, engaging in combat they've trained for. They know what they're doing and they know the risks. It is full of agency. So you trying to compare it with this woman being literally held down by multiple people as she screams and tries to get away. That is not a battlefield. That is torture. That's a different thing. Mm-hmm. So it's extra weird to me that you're going to try and act like it needed to be there for the comparison when that comparison doesn't work at all. Those aren't alike. The whole thing with the birthing bed being a battlefield is that as a woman in this universe, you are expected to do certain things, just like men are expected to do certain things. You have to accept and go into things knowing that you may not come out the other side of it. Mm-hmm. And that's like, I just don't understand the need we have to like make women go through this, you know? And the idea that maybe it's just to get him to the point where he's like, oh, fine, I'll make my daughter the heir because I regret it so much. He made his daughter the heir without this happening in the original story. He didn't need this as motivation. It didn't have to be there. It was literally his only option because he had no other children. It just, none of the arguments that I have seen are compelling to me at all. I find it all to be excuses and really lame excuses that insult both the like text and viewers. For this reason, you all have to know, I am going to be going into continuing watching the show with like a sour attitude. And I'm sorry, but I am. And I'm just going to be really honest with you guys about it. And that's not to say that I'm not going to have an open mind because I'm really going to try to. But this is so egregious and it's so soon in the series for this to happen. It's hard for me. And I don't want to start and just stop. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do that. But I will tell you what, I did not rewatch this episode before recording today with you.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I watched it the one time. I had no interest.
Oh, wow.
So that's sort of where I'm coming from. And I'm sorry because I know a lot of people were really into this as a first episode. And I mean, the acting is amazing. The production value is off the charts, of course, because they have an insane budget now because this is Game of Thrones universe. So of course they're going to throw everything they've got. And it looks beautiful. That is all definitely true. The start of Game of Thrones had a sort of warmth with the Starks, and I don't have that with this. There isn't. Everybody seems to be kind of grim. I'm interested to see if it stays with the tone that it started with, or if they're going to add a dash of any other character that's going to lighten things a bit. Because the story is grim, but I also would like for there to be a leavening. And so far, the only person that is like approaching having a sense of humor is Damon, who's also out here disfiguring people. So he doesn't exactly count as leavening. I feel bad because I don't like to be a downer, and I'm going to try really hard to not be. But also, an issue like this, you guys know I'm going to have things to say. I'm going to try to keep an open mind and not bang on the same drum the whole time.
Unless they deserve it.
And they might. Some of banging their own same drum. You know? I don't know. It's everybody's got their own threshold.
Yeah.
And like you said, you got chills at just the opening and it just being back in this world. And I think that's probably a lot of it for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Just being back here again. It's like way back in the day when I was still a fan of J.K. Rowling and hearing the opening Harry Potter dun 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 dun, and like, was the movie garbage? Yes. Did I still get chills at the opening because it was? I definitely did.
Yeah, it was. I was surprised at how affected I was by coming back into this world, like seeing it. I had not forgotten, but was remembering, just how beautiful it was and how, the set design and the costumes and the care and the high level of production is just, I was like, oh yeah, because I haven't been watching, well, I've been watching a bunch of shit, but I haven't really been watching much in this genre of like high fantasy. I think the only other thing I've watched recently that would come close is I watched Wheel of Time on Amazon.
Oh shit, okay.
But otherwise, I'm not getting this type of world pretty much anywhere else. Visually, yeah, I mean, like on TV. Like we're reading the books, obviously, but so it's like that is when you're brought back into this, and I was just like, oh, look at the dragons and look at this set and this castle, and and just it was
the shit. Grounds.
Oh my god, that was the dragon pit, right? Where they were having the tournament.
I don't think is that the dragon pit. I thought the dragon pit was a lot bigger than that. I don't know.
I couldn't tell, like, because when we see the dragon pit in the Game of Thrones, it's like in ruin, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But I remember it looking like a ruined Colosseum. So then when we have the tourney, I was just like, oh, I wonder, is that? It looks like maybe that's the same space. Like it's narrower because it's filled with seats at this point, like in Hot Dragon, right? Or House of Dragon, Hot Dragon.
You Lord. Said Hot Dragon?
But, like all the seating makes the little part in the middle seem much more narrow than it was on the original show. Mm-hmm. But all of the seating and shit had like crumbled. So the middle seemed like it was much bigger, I think. But I could be wrong. It could be an entirely different location.
Because I think so. What you're saying is that you think they reuse the same set, but not that in the show they're having the tourney in the dragon pit.
No. I mean, like if somebody said, "Where's the tourney at this afternoon?" a guy would be like, "Oh, it's over at the dragon pit." That's what I mean.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I don't think so because the dragons are still in the pit. They're not going to have a bunch of people sitting around right near where they keep all of their dragons. They're like in use at this point.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's where, like, you know how the show opens with, I think it's Damon landing and getting off, and there's like a couple of seasoned, one seasoned dragon handler.
That's where Rhaenyra's when she lands.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so when she lands, it looked like a small little area, and there was like a cave, like an opening of a cave.
That's
where they ushered them into.
I think that looks like a cave, but like once you're inside.
Oh, then it just okay.
I believe, yeah.
All right, but but that moment of seeing like where the tournament is and thinking to myself, oh, is that this place that had been referenced in the first show, being like in the throne room, even though it looks completely different than it did in Game of Thrones, which I guess shit just changes in 170 years. I can't remember.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a lot of like building and finishing of projects and stuff around this time and the generation before. The Iron Throne looks very different.
Oh my God, that thing looks like holy shit.
Yeah.
I thought it looked bad in Game of Thrones, like who would want to sit there? But this is absolutely who the fuck would want to sit there? Yeah,
they have like a forest of melted swords before you get up to it.
Yeah, like all around it.
Picture of what the original was supposed to look like in George's mind, I think, a while back. And they're clearly like trying to go for that. They still haven't, but I don't blame them, because if they tried to do it the way he imagined, there's no filming that. Everyone is sitting literally 15 feet above whoever is down. Like, how could you even talk to somebody from that height, So I don't think that they should have. They did their best trying to compromise, I think. I did have to, like, the tourney grounds, too, look so vaginal, which felt very much like the birthing bed is also a battlefield. Like they were trying to be like, yeah, and the battlefield's also like the birthing bed, because we're in a pussy right now. That just might be my imagination, but I calls them like I sees them. It works really well for attorney. Like the setup makes sense.
Maybe you just see vagina everywhere.
Maybe. Where's your seating section? Labia minora. Ooh, seats. Way down in the middle there. All right. So the actual, like, starting from the beginning, like you said, we have the landing, and then we've got the council meeting, and we have the Lord who is Fleabag's dad. Do you remember him from Fleabag?
I did not, couldn't place his face. He looked really familiar, but like whenever there's a show with a bunch of British actors, I'm just like, no, I know I'm going to spend the whole time being like, where's that guy from?
I love this game. I really do.
So for this episode, I was just like, you know what we're going to do? We're not going to worry about where that guy is from. I also want to say I like these sort of the very, very beginning where we get like a very brief sort of history of like, it's not even a whole history, but it's just sort of like how we got to where the show is, right? And it tells us about King Jaehaerys having to select the heir. Mm-hmm. And they had this great council, and everybody came,
right?
Which I got really distracted because the Great Council happened at Harrenhal, and it's not important at all. But all I kept thinking is, why aren't they in King's Landing for this? Like, it's so dumb. But I could not. I can
answer that for you.
Oh, is there an answer?
I'm going to be a little bit of an Austin Arminio here with Austin. There was just not enough room for all of the lords that he wanted and their retinues and everybody at King's Landing. And also, it was felt that Harrenhal was kind of like a zone where they wouldn't feel as threatened because King's Landing is the king's turf. And there was just a sense of safety to going to like a second location instead.
That's fascinating.
And also, King Jaehaerys didn't stay. He called this like council and then bounced and let them figure it out. And I am never going to forgive him for that. King Jaehaerys was a great king who had a lot of excellent. He was basically a socialist. There's a taxation that he instigated that was like, we're going to tax only luxury items. Super expensive silks, perfumes, spices are going to cost like triple. And
That's why he's so prosperous, right?
Exactly. Like he's the one who built the Kings Road, the infrastructure setups, like very good. But then he is given every opportunity to, prior to this story, set the precedent of having a female heir, and he doesn't because he's a misogynist. And it's very, very sad because he's otherwise so great, and he just can't seem to get past that women are people.
I will say, in the sort of like press dump that happened right before the show, premiered, and I don't know if they're writers or not, because we said you weren't sure if there were any like women writers on the show, but there was much to be said about how this series is going to be taking on, air quotes, the patriarchy, right? Mm-hmm. The show, we know just from, they have told us, I feel like, very explicitly that this show is going to be tackling that, right? Mm-hmm. Which is what I think is so ironic about them choosing that birth scene / death, right? Mm-hmm. And how misguided it can be when when you think you're doing one thing, but really you're doing the other.
Yeah.
But, so I thought, and this, I guess, made this up myself in my own headcanon from both the books and Game of Thrones. I feel like I had been told multiple times about how the Targaryens were much more equal-minded when it comes to gender roles, and that there were women warriors and all that stuff. So, and women dragon riders, and like I think Arya, talked a little bit about like her love for the Targaryen women who rode dragons and were sort of like fierce fighters and everything. Mm-hmm. So I was working under an assumption that in the Targaryen world, when they were ruling, that's how things were. So coming into this show and finding out about Jaehaerys choosing Viserys as his successor because of the sexism, mm-hmm. And all that, I was like, oh shit, I thought that wasn't a thing for them, but clearly it was very much a thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to me, especially, and this is another, just popping off all over the Discord, by the way, guys. So another sort of like conversation that we had. Obviously, so much of these stories are based on actual things that happened in the history of Britain and the British Isles in general. And thus, you can take a lot of what he's done as like, oh, that's a reflection of this and that. But then there are things that doing a one-to-one doesn't work because we're not in Britain. We're in Westeros, and there are dragons, magic, and shit.
Did you see that wonderful meme? Like, my guy, this is like the year of Lord McBooby, whatever. And the dragons.
Yeah.
That was so good.
So the thing with Jaehaerys, this was actually, Austin put this in the notes for one of our episodes as well, that Jaime at one point thinks nobody had a problem with the Targaryens marrying brother to sister. I don't see why we can't do it. And Austin was like, actually, people definitely had a problem with it. And then I keep saying rereading. I feel that way because I had read Princess and the Queen. But reading Fire and Blood, it was a huge battle to get the public to accept Targaryens marrying brother to sister. They were not cool with it. And what eventually Jaehaerys did that was really smart was he put propaganda out there that was basically like, look, everybody, I get it. In your religion and your people, this is an abomination. And that's true. It is. But you have to just look at a Targaryen to know we're not like you. Mm. The rules that we follow, it's just not the same. We look different. We have fucking dragons. Do any of you have dragons? No. We are the exception to a lot of rules because we aren't exactly normal people like you. Mm-hmm. We're kind of closer to gods. And so we get to do what the fuck we feel like. And what I felt really strongly was that had Jaehaerys not been so misogynist, he could have tied in having female heirs with the exceptionalism argument. Mm-hmm. And basically been like, because, a lot of the reason why he didn't want to have a female heir, aside from his own feelings about it, was the suspicion that nobody else would accept it.
That's what's so funny to me because, like, you have dragons. Who's going to check you?
This is what this entire show is going to be about. Indeed, who shall check you? So if he felt like people aren't going to accept it, this is the perfect argument to make and be like, yeah, the women from our line aren't the same as your women. So maybe you can't trust your women to rule, and that's legit because like your women are probably dumb idiots, but Targaryen women are a very different breed, and it's fine. They are still light years ahead of any like regular man. So deal with it. But he didn't do that. And if he had, a lot of things could have been avoided, I'm sure.
So yeah, we find out that Jaehaerys names Viserys his heir, completely bypassing is her name Rhaenys? Who is the eldest and should have been really, and had a really good claim, you know, and a lot of people think that, you know, she should have been named queen.
Yeah.
So the show starts out with that. They do this really cute little bit where when they're giving us this background, and then they let us know that this is 100 years before like King Aerys and Daenerys and all that stuff. And then they do this graphic thing where it's just like, this is 172 years before Daenerys Targaryen was born, and remove like the middle.
I could not stop laughing. They're basically like, look, we get it, guys. This is a lot of words for you to read. We're just going to do it too long, didn't read, because probably you can't keep up. It's just like, God, you can trust your audience a little more than that, everybody. You already highlighted the word. Right. You don't have to literally delete all the other words.
And it just, again, like the show being like I guess announcing its intentions of what it's going to be. But being a I don't know, a little heavy-handed. But also, you know, like they know what side their bread is buttered, right? Yeah. They know that Daenerys is like a key, one of the most popular characters and dragons and all that. And obviously she's the only Targaryen that we really know. So needing to remind the audience of the connection of it's just like, all right, well, yeah, I didn't read the book, but damn.
I love the idea that there was maybe people who were about to sit down and watch this who thought Daenerys was going to be on the show. Like that, there probably were people that were out there, like not really thinking about the timeline, and they were just like, "Where's Daenerys? Oh, she's not in this. Oh, I don't know then."
That probably happened across a lot of, because like there's no, like we got a couple of shout outs, right? So there's some Starks that make an appearance, but we don't like spend a lot of time with them. There's some Baratheons that show up that we don't really spend a lot of time with, but we know that they're out there and that they're in this world. We didn't see any Lannisters though. Yeah. Is their house not old enough to have been in like high standing at this time, or maybe
they were like in a good place because of their gold mines, but I feel like their family hadn't been run super well, if I'm remembering correctly. And so they just weren't really at the top of the pile.
Right. Like they're like politically, they're not, you know. So, okay. So yeah. So the episode, after our little like preamble, we see, Rhaenyra's landing on her dragon, whose name is Syrax?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And she is a young girl. I don't know exactly how old she's supposed to be. Maybe like 12, 13, you think? 11 or 12?
This is the part that I'm not really sure how they're like, because you know how it is with television. People look older than their age they're supposed to actually be playing. Right. I don't know what they're doing with the ages of these characters. Yeah. Like her friend Alicent is actually quite a bit older than her in the original story, but they have them at looking pretty much the same age here. So yeah, I'm not really sure what they're going to say. Right. You know,
she is. She lands and they take the dragon in, and then they are heading back into the city, and it opens on like a council meeting. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So we have got the dude who I was like, this is Fleabag's dad. Is his name, which I don't remember him. I'm sure that he actually is in the book, but there's so many lords to keep track of. Forgive me, everybody. Lord Lyman Beesbury. And I don't know why, but that is hysterical. So we've got Lord Lyman Beesbury. We've got the Maester Melos. Lord, what is this other guy's name?
I'm not sure. Are you just naming everybody at the council?
Who's at the table? Yeah, at this point.
Let me catch up. I'm like a couple bits behind.
There's Otto Hightower, who is his hand, I think, at the moment.
Yes.
And his daughter is the one that's like serving the wine. So she's in the room, which is kind of a big deal that he's having her be a page at meetings, because this way she gets to listen to every their consultation and get a feel for what everybody's personality is like and all that.
He tells her she smells like outside.
Oh my God. Everybody keeps being like, you smell like a dragon. Go take a shower. And I was like, the idea that dragons have a really strong smell is actually kind of fascinating.
Well, wouldn't they though? Like, wouldn't they smell like?
They would. It just
like
never
sulfur and shit.
Yeah. And then there's Orlus Valerian, which is the black guy with the white dreads.
Yes. So, I'm looking for the guy that played Fleabag's dad, and it just hasn't scrolled. Oh, there he is. Okay, gotcha. I had known about Corlys because, of course, the internet was in a state after the casting was announced, right?
Right.
So I had been seeing his picture floating around, and then the discourse team around it and everything. But having him actually in the show at the council was just like, I'm not supposed to necessarily care, you know, and I don't know. I think I saw people being like, the Valerians were described very explicitly the same way the Targaryens are, their physical characteristics are described very explicitly, right? So I guess in the book, they are described as being like the sort of silver hair and also being very pale, and all that, right? Which I didn't know. I didn't know that
they are, but George has also come out and said that he imagined some of them being black. So,
he did?
Yeah, he has.
Interesting.
He's basically like, yeah, this is giving an opportunity to do a thing that I haven't really gotten to explore that land very much because of what happened to Valyria, obviously. So,
right.
Yeah. So this is something that he was very much in favor of.
Right. So the Valerians, I obviously don't know much about them, but they have the silver hair as well. And he seems very powerful. And he's also married to Rhaenys?
Rhaenys, yeah.
So he is low-key married into the royal family, which is a big fucking deal.
Yeah. And just for the funsies, I'm going to tell you, Corlys is a badass.
Oh, word.
He is pretty dope as a character. So I don't know how much we're going to get to do with him because it just all depends on how they feel like pacing everything, basically. And if they're going to spread things out a ton or what. But
I read they got a season 2
a lot with him
already. Already confirmed or whatever. So, well, that is very exciting to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Him and his wife are the best part of
love
Fire
her.
and Blood to me, and I was really excited that they got to be like kind of snarky commentary.
Yes,
show.
Yes,
because that is just the very much the energy. Like she has an entire mood to me in the book of just somebody who is like, you know what? Oh, I'm not the heir. Oh, so that means I can just like go do whatever the fuck I want as an incredibly powerful Targaryen with a fucking dragon who's also super hot and like a warrior. Wow. Really sucks. And I just really love her. And the woman they cast, I feel like perfect. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I really enjoyed seeing them on screen together and the few moments that they have. There's a bit at the tourney after the Baratheon like ask for her favor. Mm-hmm. And there's just like these knowing looks. Like I don't know everything that's happening behind, like what exactly is going on there, but it was definitely some shade, and it was confirmed when like the Baratheon asked for her favor is throwing shade.
Oh yeah.
And then when her and Corlys are talking about how the day is getting really ugly once the tourney sort of devolves into like they're just killing people, which. I clearly do not understand the terms and conditions of entering the tournament. I thought this was like for show. I thought this was like a demo, you know? This is for funsies.
It's like when we go to
To medieval times, right? Like people's life is on the line for
I
real.
don't understand. They're just why don't they have chicken legs? Where's their tomato soup?
Where's my goblet of wine?
Oh, I miss that place. I want to go back. That place is so fun. It's got this smell when you walk in. You're just like, yep, this is a weird thing.
The one up here, the closest one to me is in Jersey, and they just showed up in my newsfeed because they voted to unionize.
Oh shit!
Yeah, right.
All right.
Yeah. So Corliss and Rhaenys are already like my favorite people in the show, and I'm here for them whispering and hopefully plotting and conniving. I hope that is all on the table.
Yeah, this will be fun. I have my reservations about a lot, as you guys know, but there are things that I'm like, if they go off book a little bit, I'm not going to be mad about certain parts. Go ahead. That'll be just
awesome
fanfic that I can get behind.
Also, those pretty brown babies and all that white hair.
Oh my God. I cannot. I feel like it looks a lot better once I'm into the show, but they had like some promo pics of him initially where his wig looks so bad.
The wigs are not great.
No.
Don't get me wrong. The wigs are not fantastic. I don't know what the problem is why Hollywood can't give black people wigs right. It's like they're not as bad as like Walking Dead wigs, but remember how bad that shit was?
That looked like they just dunked a mop head in Rit, dried it out on a table, and then stuck it on somebody's head. And it's always dreads for the men. Yeah. They can't just be bald or have a fade. They always have to give them dreads, and I don't know what that's about.
Because in the apocalypse, there's like nobody to take care of our hair, so it's just going to grow like that.
Okay, because women are definitely going to have shaved armpits and tinted eyes.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, these writers have no idea, like, you know, that there are ways to care for your hair when you grow dreads. Like, you know, like no shade. Some people just let it go wild, and that's totally valid. But also, yeah, even after the end of the world, we could still maintain our hair. It does not really take that much. It's not like there's, you know what I mean?
No. Yeah, and I feel like it does look, I think the promo pictures, maybe it wasn't their best work because they take promo pics early, usually. And they maybe just hadn't quite gotten it down how to apply the wig yet. And by the time they got into filming a little bit more, they had gotten better.
There are 87 billion YouTube channels that they could have just watched to see how to install a wig on a black person.
To be fair, some of the wigs on the white people are also pretty bad.
You know what? You are correct.
and I'm not going to get too mad over it because it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
So many wigs. I mean, usually if you've got like one or two people who wear a wig, you can spend a good amount of time on them. Yeah. But if you've got like the entire cast.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the council meeting is they're kind of talking about the tournament that's coming up, and they're also talking about some, if I'm not mistaken, some doings that are occurring like across the Narrow Sea. I think it's some area they're worried about. He's system like a triarch or something.
Yeah, I'll just do a real brief synopsis here. So the three countries across the Narrow Sea are joining forces there's a real problem with pirates on the Stepstones, which is like this little collection of islands that you absolutely have to pass through to get to certain other like trading ports like Pentos. And they are populated by pirates so that everybody who goes through is getting hit hard.
Oh, shit.
And so finally, all three of these countries that are like, they all team up and are like, fuck these pirates, that is it, we have had enough, and they decide that they're going to essentially like wage war on the Stepstones. So that's what's they're in the middle of talking about, and that's what Viserys is kind of like, you're telling me this like this is bad news, they're getting rid of pirates that like fuck our shit up all the time, what's the problem?
And Corliss is like, but once they get all this power, they could be a problem. And no one else seems to necessarily think that this is a big deal.
They do not.
They do not.
Yeah. The general sense of like, well, it's got to be better than the pirates, I think, you know?
So Corliss has this energy, at least it feels like, of being like, oh, okay, so he's the aggressive one here on the council. You know, he's the one that wants to go out and fight everybody all the time. And I don't know if that's like part of his character, but I want it to be.
It is pretty much like his nickname in the books is the Sea Snake.
Oh, word?
And he's like his investment in what's going on in the seas and with trading makes a lot of sense because of that being how he made a fortune.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
That's what's going on there. And I'm actually pretty excited. So here it is. Lys, Mir, and Tiroche. They're the 3 countries that are invading the kingdoms.
Okay. So we know those places.
Yes.
All right. So that gives me an idea geographically of like exactly where this is all happening.
Exactly.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
So after the council, and they also are talking about the tournament, Rhaenyra leaves because there's someone, her little private guard. I like her guard. He has not really done anything, but I really like him. I don't know why.
All right. Well,
I don't know why. I found him comforting. Like he has like a little bit of a throwaway line at the beginning when she lands off of the dragon because he gets really nervous when she's flying, and he makes a joke about how he would be held responsible if something happened to her. And then when he escorts her to the throne room, and Daemon is sitting on the throne, he is like, the way he clutches his pearls.
Oh my God.
And she just basically has to tell him, like, relax.
This actor is in Outlander. And
the guy playing the guard?
Yeah. And I find him so sexy. I don't remember his name.
Maybe that's what I like about him, and I just didn't want to say, or I just didn't know.
He's just got some kind of like energy that I'm trying to find his name here on the IMDb, and I am not tracking him down because the cast is so big.
Yeah.
But yeah. This seems like a good time. Let's take a break right here. And we're back.
All right, let's talk about Daemon.
Yeah, let's talk about Daemon. We got to do something about Daemon. That's basically the energy of this entire episode. It's like, what are we going to do with this fucking guy?
I do not find him like physically attractive at all. Right? I know a lot of people are just like, oh, he could get it 2 times. However, there is something, since we were just talking about energy, there's something about the energy he is bringing that is just chaotic enough to hit like my sweet spots. Because y'all know how I get down. So, also, when he presents the necklace,
yeah,
I got like squirmy feelings in my belly, and I did not care for it.
They let that like camera linger on how the necklace is brushing against her collarbone, and there is just something deeply sexual about it.
It really is, and I am just like, are we doing this in the very first episode?
Yeah,
I guess we are. The way he is also, there's a really great shot too. They did. It's like really, when she enters the throne room, it's dark, and he is sitting on a throne, but he is like completely in shadow, and the camera is on her while she's speaking, and he's responding to her, but it's coming from shadow. And then there's a moment where he leans forward out of the shadow, and the light hits his face, and the way his body is positioned on the throne, where he is sitting like so casually on such a very dangerous thing. Like any wrong move could just slice something off of you, you know? And the way he is moving so comfortably in that space, I was like, oh, hold up. Hold up.
I love, when you had already said the guard with the pearl clutching, but the door opens and he just says something like, "Gods be good."
Right?
Genuinely, like, how could she has to be like, it's okay, go stand outside.
Right?
If you can't handle it. Wait in the fucking car if you have to.
You know, like he really reacts like they walked in on him jerking off on Iron Throne. Like,
He probably had been right before they got there.
girl, listen.
That's exactly the type of shit I could see him doing.
So yeah, he gives her this beautiful necklace, and also I just want to throw out there that his sword is named Dark Sister, and for obvious reasons, I love that.
Gets a hand-me-down. I know it sounds probably very disrespectful to say that, but
like,
it is a sword that they call it an heirloom, I guess, in white families. So we'll call it an heirloom. But yeah, Dark Sister is like an ancient sword that I think had belonged to Nymeria Targaryen.
So it's like a big deal to have this, right? This
Yeah.
is like an honor that he's the one that it gets given to, which is interesting to me because I would feel like something that important and would go to like say Viserys because he's king or whatever. But I guess that's not. I guess you get the swords when you're much younger, though.
Queen
Actually-
Visenya is the first one to have had it, and it says specifically here it may have been forged for a woman or warrior originally, as its slender blade is designed for a woman's hand. Interesting.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, I always thought that the name was awesome. I remember like the first recordings I did with Brendan, and there's a mention of Dark Sister. I think Arya's talking about it, and I was like, ooh, awesome name. I love this. But yeah, for obvious reasons for you, it has a whole...
It's a little on the nose, but still.
You're like, here's a Dark Sister you could put in your scabbard.
Ma'am.
Uh-huh. Whip it out.
Oh. So they have that moment, and I was, like I said, my stomach lurched a couple times, for a couple of different reasons. Well, hopefully I'm being overly sensitive, and that doesn't necessarily ever become a thing. I know the Targaryens, won't let a little incest stop them. But I just really hope that's not, I don't know if I want that.
We'll see.
I'm hoping the age difference, even though that has never protected anybody in this world, but I'm still going to be like, there's no reason for them to get together. Mm-hmm. There's no reason for them to get together. There's no reason for them to get together.
I will say too, again, those of you who are interested, you could go watch the live that I did with Miles, where we talked about the potential for the show and his feelings on Fire and Blood, although it's a lot of ranting on his part again.
Is Miles going to watch this?
He isn't. I feel like he isn't. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'll ask him.
But we're not in agreement because I felt like Matt Smith would be pretty good. I have always felt like, even as the Doctor, he plays a kind of like kooky, goofy, silly Doctor. But also, the Doctor's low-key and fucking maniac psychopath. He just is. And there's always been a sort of edge to the character that I feel like doesn't really get acknowledged quite enough. And Matt Smith always, for me, had a vibe of somebody who was on the edge of losing it and killing everybody. He just had that energy. It felt threatening. So when they said they cast him in this, there was a moment where I was like, really? And then I stopped and thought about it, and I was like, oh no, yeah, that tracks. And yeah.
What was the reaction? So I'm assuming Miles thought that this was a terrible casting choice for this character.
He was just baffled by it. He has only ever seen him, because Matt Smith's been in a ton of stuff, but both me and Miles have pretty much only ever seen him in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Apparently he plays an actual serial killer in some movie.
I have no idea if I've ever seen him before. It doesn't feel like I've ever seen him in anything. But,
yeah. So Miles was like, he seemed like a child in Doctor Who. He was like a little virginal child. I just can't imagine how he's going to be this like swaggering seducer. I guess it's just seducer, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And I feel like it works quite well. And when he's in that like dragon helm, I think it was pretty dope.
I thought he brought a very like a real menacing sort of feeling, to his character, even when he wasn't doing anything overtly violent, which we get a couple of scenes of him being like straight up,
Yeah.
But even in like the quiet moments, I found him to be menacing. Like when he's at the council meeting after the night of the City Watch, and he's like still got blood on his face, and they're all like admonishing him for his behavior, and he doesn't raise his voice. He's not like disrespectful or anything, but it's a real kind of like the way he's talking to Hightower, I think it is.
Yeah.
Just like he just is bringing a lot of, are you sure you want to fuck with me though? And so yeah, I thought he did really well.
And Hightower's like, I am not sure.
You know what?
Unsure,
I think I'm going to take it under advisement. I will get back to you on the status of whether or not I want you to really fuck with me or not.
I love at one point Otto is like, we should never have made him the head of the Gold Cloaks. And the king is like, you're the one who made me hire him from 3 previous fucking jobs and said that this was the best place to put him. And basically Otto is like, yeah, well, he shouldn't even be in the fucking state. Send him abroad because this man is a fucking hazard no matter what you do with him.
They really said the further away we can get him, the better.
Yep. Get him out of here. Send him to boarding school or something. I don't know. So, and we have a brief scene of Alicent and Rhaenyra, and Alicent is trying to get her to like remember her history, and Rhaenyra is just like, not only do I not care, but I will get everything right in a second. So don't worry, I'm remembering. But also, I don't really want to be here anymore because it's very clear I'm not wanted. My dad wants a son. They have no use for me. And as soon as he has the son, that's the person getting all the attention. What am I even doing here?
I love this moment because it showed us very quickly, not just how close they are, but how well Alicent knows Rhaenyra. Because she's just like, all right, you're definitely, fucked up about what's happening with this son that's about to be born, and you're worried about it, and you don't want to talk about it with me, but I know that's what's going on. Yep. And then she says, I know that's, the reason I know it is because this is how you act when you're upset.
Yeah, right? Yeah, the two of them, it's, I think that they made them a closer in age so that they looked more believable as like just hanging out kinds of friends. Even though that kind of age difference wouldn't really probably have been too much of a hindrance back then. And I say back then with the full awareness this is not real, but you know what I mean.
Back then it make believe.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you that the reveal at the end of the episode, it's not like a huge reveal, but the way the story turns with Alicent at her father's behest was like, if knowing that they're so close, and then seeing that what her father is trying to get her to do, and I don't know if the show is going to follow through with that. Like, I don't know if, like, it seems very much like Hightower is basically like sending his daughter in to comfort the king and maybe get him in bed, right? Knowing that her and Rhaenyra are so close, finding out that that's where the story might be going, I was just like, fuck. I would have preferred, like it just be some random woman, but to be her best friend, I don't know. I just was, ugh.
I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah. I'm hoping that Viserys doesn't fall for that, But I don't know, guys. Men, no shade.
Men are
not
easy.
All men, but they really are. Like, and especially in a vulnerable state of grief, and then having a young, lithe, attractive young woman come to spend time with you. It'd be very easy for him to fall in, love / lust / infatuation, / low key. Oh, maybe I have a chance for a son after all. Like, who knows if that's on the fucking horizon? But knowing how men are, I feel like 1 leads to 2 leads to 3. But it made me sad because I can't imagine their friendship stays as close if that happens. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just me. Can you stay best friends when your best friend starts fucking your dad?
There's a
I
lot
feel
of
like you
fucking
can't.
Reddit questions out there, I'm sure, asking that exact question.
Right? I feel like you can't do it. I feel like...
This is not actually in the same overtly sexual. It's actually, the thing I'm referencing is meant to be a lot more of a platonic thing. But there is, you know, the guy who does the song, Have You Checked Your Butthole?
Yes,
Get up,
actually,
shut
I
up,
do.
butthole.
I do.
He came out with the song pretty recently. It's one of the newer ones. That's basically him saying, I really do like you and everything, but I would much rather hang out with your dad.
Oh no.
And the whole song is him like, just let me flirt with your dad.
Oh no.
And the two of them like ganging up on the friend. His best friend and his father both being like, you idiot. That's stupid. And that was, go check it out, guys. Highly recommend. Tom Cardy. Some of his stuff is just straight up weird. And I will grant you that. It doesn't all hit. But when it hits, it is just Jeff's kiss. Anyway, yeah. So there's so many things that I want to say to you, but I can't because they're all spoilers. All right.
So then we go to, I think, from this conversation with Alicent to something is going on with King Viserys.
Yeah, he's got a cut that looks like it got infected from sitting on the throne.
Yeah, that shit is nasty.
Yeah. It's pretty gross.
It really was, show. There was no need.
They were like, all right, we're going to make this like scab. And then does anybody have like a cup of like vanilla pudding?
Oh my God.
Slap a little bit of that on there and make it, that's the stuff.
Why are you ruining vanilla pudding for everybody?
On it as he scoops the vanilla pudding off the scab. That's perfect.
Stop calling it vanilla pudding for the love of God.
Enjoy your vanilla pudding. I would love if there was like an outtake where the maester's scooping it off and then he just like sticks his finger in his mouth.
Oh my God. Yuck.
Not bad.
Yuck. Somebody, one of the other maesters is like, we could cauterize it. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, we can't.
And Viserys is like, all right, fine. He just doesn't there's no restraint at all. He's just like, yeah, then cauterize it and shut the fuck up. It's like he's just so sick of talking about it. And I think that maybe part of it's supposed to be, the legend is if you get cut by the throne, it means the throne rejected you.
Oh.
And that you're not really supposed to be king for long if it's cutting you up. It's supposed to be an indicator that shit's not going to go well for you. In this
will say they do make it a point to mention that this is a wound that is refusing to heal.
Yeah.
Like they have sent shit off to the Citadel for help, because they are like just haven't been able to figure out what's going on with this thing and how to heal it. So that is, and now I feel like that was something that was mentioned in the show or maybe in the books since we've been reading. Mm-hmm. The idea that the throne cuts, people who aren't worthy or shouldn't be sitting there or whatever. So being reminded of that, this feels like some real serious foreshadowing.
Yeah, it feels to me, because they are talking, when he says it's just a cut from sitting the Iron Throne, the camera pulls back and we see Otto Hightower and the Maester give each other a look.
Yeah.
And I think that's supposed to be the two of them being like, we know what it's from.
The Maester said something weird, too, about how sometimes your state of mind...
How bad humors can affect your health.
Yes, that's what it is. Also,
I'm not sure he meant state of mind, because humors... Oh.
I think we should bring back using humors in that way. I really think
fun.
we do. It is.
Well, when you just say, the vibes are off, you're basically saying, I don't like the humors in here.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Holy shit, you are right.
So we find new ways to say old things. I'm looking up humorism now just out of curiosity because I don't remember the names of all of the different. So there are 4 humors. Black bile, yellow bile, phlegm, and blood.
I feel like we talked about this before on a podcast.
I am certain that it's come up.
And it was probably fucking related to Song of Ice and Fire, whether it was us doing the books or doing the show or something.
Probably.
Because I can't imagine who else is using humors like that. Or maybe it was Dresden. Who fucking knows?
It might have been. Yeah.
God, that's funny. So after that, I think we go to, is the scene with her and her mother?
First, there's the bathtub chat with Viserys, but we pretty much talked about that already.
Yeah.
Then we go to the City Watch going out there and fucking everybody's lives right up.
So okay. So I watched this twice. The first time I didn't watch it with subtitles. The second time I did. So the first time, it really looked to me like they were just out there fucking everybody up, almost indiscriminately. Dragging people,
targeted.
Dragging people out of their homes. You know, I could gather by watching, like, oh, they're chopping people's hands off. Those people that steal. You know, the guy who gets castrated. Okay, he's probably a rapist or whatever. But when the guy got his head chopped off, I was like, what the fuck did he do? And then upon watching with subtitles, that guy is accused of being a murderer.
Yeah.
But there is no trial for any of these crimes.
No, indeed.
This is all hearsay and conjecture.
Some of it is supposed to be that this is the first night the gold cloaks are out and everything has gotten so bad because there has been no oversight that they catch people in the act a lot because they are just not worried about consequences anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if this was like because Damon gives them a bit of a rousing speech before he unleashes them onto the citizenry. And he says, when he's speaking sort of in the past tense, he's like, when I got here, when I found you, you know, you all were undisciplined, you know, worthless dogs and all this kind of stuff. And now I have trained you and built you into this machine, you know?
Yep.
So it feels like he's been working with them for a little while, but this is their, I guess,
their debut,
right? Yeah. And they just really come out of the gate swinging hard.
Yeah.
And I'm torn because, you know, I would prefer a world where due process is a thing, but also sometimes you got to castrate a rapist.
Same. I really
do. You know?
I feel you on this. And that's why I'm kind of trying to put it in my head that they caught this man raping. He was in the middle of it. They yanked him off her, and then they castrated him. Yeah.
I mean, the murderer, the gold cloak that's next to Damon literally just points a sword at him and goes, murderer! Right? And that's all it takes.
And nobody in this scene is saying, I'm not a murderer, I'm not a raper. Nobody pretends that they aren't the thing they're being called. They just are like, don't cut my dick off, though. But nobody's trying to say they're innocent. So I'm just saying, in this fictional universe, I will be a hypocrite about everything that I say. Just everybody be prepared for that. I also have to mention that the guy, when he cuts his head off, it's really funny because what they have is two guards that force the man to his knees in front of Damon, and they're each holding an arm sort of up and behind him so that he can't move. And Damon sees from a few paces away and gets this little smile and pulls his sword out in a like, oh, sweet, I get one kind of way. And then the camera takes the position of the guy getting his head cut off, and Damon winds up for this swing that would absolutely have sliced both of the soldiers holding this man in half. There's no way he cuts this man's head off with that stroke and doesn't hit the soldiers behind him. It's impossible. And all I could think was like, he cut those two men in half and was like,
and didn't even care.
Breaks.
Sometimes that happens in the pursuit of justice.
Yeah, I know I did, but you saw how dope that sword was, right? Like, my cape was just up behind. It was very good. So I feel like I made an impression and it was worth the cost. And speaking of cost, then we have Otto telling the king, they needed 2 horse carts to haul away the resulting dismemberments when it was done.
He's so disgusted.
Yep.
Do we talked about the bathtub scene earlier, so we didn't really. Do you want to talk about the dream thing, the dream bit? Because we talked mostly about her and the children and all that, but
which dream? Do you mean
the dream
and fire dream?
No, the dream that Viserys is telling Emma that that he had about the birth of their son.
Oh, I forgot all about that.
Right. So I am remembering you told me when we were reading the books that, when Game of Thrones came about, they took out a lot of the sort of real magical kind of like prophecies and shit, like a lot of the wolf dreams and the fucking, what are the Targaryen dreams called? You told me they have like a name. I forget what they're called.
Oh, God, I don't remember. The Targaryen one specifically?
Yeah, there was something you said they were called. I can't remember, but that it's a sort of like a thing. It was a thing in this world in the books. People having these sort of prophetic dreams that didn't really make it to the show.
Yeah.
So he is telling her in the bathtub scene about how he knows he's having a son, and it's a really specific dream that he has had.
Remind me, because I don't remember what the dream was.
Let's see if I can.
I don't remember if this is in the main book or not.
Here we go. So she's basically being like, you fucking have this tournament coming to celebrate a son that you fucking don't have, sir. Explain yourself, which I thought was really funny. She also tells him, I don't care how big your party is, you can't make a baby grow a cock if it doesn't already have one.
Yes, that is a very good line.
He says, our son was born wearing Aegon's crown, and I heard the sound of thundering hooves, splintering shields, and ringing swords. And I placed our son upon the Iron Throne, and the bells of the Grand Sept rolled, and all the dragons roared as one. So that's the dream he has about having her, like, the son that's coming.
Right. And he said it was clearer than a memory.
I love it. She says, born wearing a crown. This shit is painful enough already. Why are you making it worse? What a fucking shame she's already gone out of this one episode. I enjoyed her.
Yeah.
It's a fucking real bummer. So what do I think? Well, the way they shot the whole scene, right? There was splintering of shields, There was roaring. It wasn't all the dragons at once in the way that you kind of think it's going to mean when he's describing the stream, right? It's more of like individual, like the people that are dragons are the ones that are like roaring in this episode. Daemon on the field and Viserys while he's crying, Aemma when she's screaming in childbirth and dying, So it's like, that's the thing about these kind of dreams though, right? Like they feel like they mean one thing.
You're lining up this dream with the...
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah. Should I be lining it up with something else?
Maybe.
Bitch?
Maybe you should. I'm just going to put it out there.
Ah, shit. Okay. Noted.
I'm just going to say a spoiler a little bit for a treat. Just a little spoiler for a treat. I'm not as worried about being like completely spoiler free with this the same way.
Okay.
But I am not going to go any further than that.
Okay, so well, I'll have to revisit this then and think about what other things that could mean. Interesting. All right. So, okay. So then there's the bathroom scene, and then...
the council meeting after, the day after Daemon did what he did, which Daemon is sitting at the council with his fucking bloody face. Like, he didn't even go shower before...
No, he came right in from work. Smelling like outside again, just like she did when she showed up.
Sweaty as hell. And there's something interesting with this that I'm curious for people who may know more about like medieval custom, if this was a genuine thing then or if this was made up for the show. They all have this sort of marble sphere that they dropped into.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that. I'm so glad you brought it up.
I don't recall this, and I just, maybe it went over my head, but it's sort of officially starting the meeting when they put it in place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all of us have to turn our key.
Yeah, like calling the meeting to order. But
Yeah.
instead of a gavel, everybody just drops in their little ball. What happens if you show up for a meeting and you didn't bring yours?
This is like, honestly, what I kept thinking, because they all sit back after they put this little thing in the disc and they sit back, it all looks like they have the kind of speaker that you put on a desk when you're having like a virtual meeting.
Oh my God, yes, I know exactly what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like, so it all kind of looked like they maybe don't even need to be in the same room. Maybe this is just projecting them into their chair, a la...
It's like a Jedi High Council meeting.
Yeah, you know,
just like
or
a hologram in.
The way that it always looks like they're standing there, and then all of a sudden, surprise, they wink out because it was unreal. But that was just, it kept, the way that all of that is shaped is so like smooth edged and futuristic in a way that it just looked like this is like an Echo Dot or something. Anyway, just had to mention that because I'm curious if you guys have any further info. Feel free to share.
I love how many different dragon-styled helms Damon has, too. He has, like, the one for the tournament. He's got the one when he's, like, citywide. It's like, I like to imagine he's just got a closet filled with dragon-inspired, you know,
that's got
outfits.
A lot of potential in it. So, yeah, I would be, like designing that shit all the time.
When they're at the tourney, even his horse has, like he's wearing this, like, incredible get-up himself, right? But even his horse, I don't know what you call it, but like he's wearing something over like the mane and down the back of the horse's neck that look like dragon scales. Dope.
So yeah, this meeting is basically like, we're telling you that you like went too far, and he's telling them, I didn't. And that's kind of like the meeting.
Yeah, it's there's a funny bit too. Somebody asked this guy Lord Strong for his opinion, and this guy, he opens his mouth, he's like 2 words out, and then Otto just like talks right over him. Yeah,
Strong is just kind of doing the, I really don't want to be involved. Please feels like take a stance on this.
Please don't ask me any direct questions. Yep. And yeah, there's just a lot of you know, you're out of control. You can't, you know, behave this way. You're supposed to be protecting the city. You're not like out there supposed to be ravaging our own people. And he says something back to Viserys like, but it's your city. I'm trying to make it safer. Yeah. And Damon also mentions, hey, you have this really big deal happening. People are coming from all over for this tourney. They don't want to show up and get like raped and murdered and mugged. So I'm doing you a solid.
Look, and I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but the Yelp reviews for the city, not great. The rep is in the toilet. You're wanting as many people to come as you can. It's good for the economy. Come. If we don't put those stars up a little bit, we've got to do some PR.
Damon in this moment is every, like, because Pennsylvania is in the middle of, like, you know, a primary, like an election for both governor and a Senate seat. Damon is every Republican ad. The crime is too high in the city.
Tough on crime. Meanwhile, Corliss is off to the side going, oh, everybody's afraid? That's what they're for. Good. And Damon is like high-fiving him from down the table.
Corliss was a little bit of a cop apologist in this moment. Yeah.
He's
I have
like,
to keep my eye on that.
The criminals to be afraid of the police. That's the point. So I don't get it.
I don't understand what all the hubbub is about.
And Hightower here is like, oh, okay, well, if that's not going to work, I'm going to pivot and be like, wait, why haven't you seen your wife in a while? And I was just like, Loki, what is that council business for?
It really isn't.
What are you doing?
And Damon's reaction, he does not really care about his wife at all, and doesn't seem like he's even attracted to her sexually, and is downright rude about it in this moment. And he does say one little thing that, like, I raised my eyebrow at when he's describing his wife as being unattractive. He calls her bronze.
That is about the colors of her house.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. I saw that and I was like, ooh, people aren't going to understand what he means by that with no context.
Yeah.
I didn't explain that.
Yes. Thank you for that. Okay.
That is the house colors, but she lives in the Vale, and he got assigned to marry her, essentially.
Yeah, and
his duty, but does not care for her.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like I haven't heard any talk of children or of him having children, so I don't know if that's something that is like, I don't know because I don't know it, or maybe he just doesn't have any and you can't tell me because it's a spoiler. I'm not really sure. Is it a spoiler? Does he have children, Damon?
I can't. Yeah.
You can't? Okay.
Spoiler.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, I'll just have to wait.
But yeah, it's not mentioned here, and the implication is pretty much he hasn't been around her enough to like get her pregnant.
Right. Yeah, because I was curious if some of his dissatisfaction with her and not wanting to be home is that maybe she has difficulty like producing children, and maybe that is a part of the friction there. Or does he just straight up not give a fuck and doesn't like her? I wasn't sure, so that's what made me ask.
And Damon essentially here, because Otto, what his ploy is clearly is like, how can I get rid of this guy?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I can shame him into going to the Vale for a while and he'll be out of our hair. But Damon is like, or I could make it seem like you're so interested in my wife because your wife's dead, and I'll hand my wife over if you would like some company. And Otto is extremely offended. He stands up like he is about to start something.
Mm-hmm. And it's just right the fuck back down. Viserys is like, why are you letting him get you all razzled? Like, the fuck is wrong with you? You know how he is. And then he tells Damon, cut it out. That's it.
Yeah.
Cut it out.
The fucking expression on Damon's face right here. He has a like, ain't I a stinker? Kind of look on his face, and I could not help it. That was charming. Finally, after the guy sits down, like, oh, maybe you're not ready to move on yet. And there's something about like ending it that way that's almost worse. I don't know.
It's such a, and it's funny, the transition from this moment in the council where Damon clearly has the upper hand.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next scene is him with his paramour, if I'm being nice, I guess, whose name is my
I
Sarah?
can never keep this straight.
I'm waiting for her name to pop up in the subtitles. I think it's Mysaria. I might not be saying it correctly, but that's what it looks like. Yeah, it's Mysaria.
Mysaria, that sounds right.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is
I forgot. Okay. Yeah.
So she it looks like they're in a brothel and not somewhere private because they're fucking and there's a bunch of people watching them through this wall. So I don't know if she's actually a prostitute or maybe she's just a mistress, but it looks like a prostitute, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But clearly they are, it's more than just that for him. Like,
I could not help laughing though. Like, he finally pulls out and it's just like, I can't finish.
Well, yeah, that's what's so funny to me is like he goes from this moment at the council where he is like,
and all these people are watching. Did you know that? Like, he just like basically tapped out. I feel like all those people watching are going to be like, what the fuck?
I thought that too. And then I was like, maybe Targaryens just don't give a fuck. And maybe they simply cannot be insulted by people they don't think matter. You know how that can be sometimes where
I could see that.
Certain people cannot be shamed.
Yep.
Unless, be made to feel shame by people that they really think are so beneath them. Like they literally cannot be made to feel bad or embarrassed.
Yeah, I mean, they do see themselves as essentially gods. So what are they going to feel bad about?
And she says to him, it echoes almost with what Alicent was saying to Rhaenyra earlier. You can't be replaced. I know you're worried about this new heir that's coming. And she offers, like, to sort of appease him sexually. She's like, oh, well, I can bring in somebody.
One with silver hair?
Yeah, a maiden with silver hair, which I thought was very specific. And then I was like, I got that squirrely feeling in my stomach again.
Yeah. And then we cut to her going out for the tourney. And we pretty much, I feel like, talked about the birthing scene. We don't need to get back to that. Focus on the tournament only here.
Yeah, agreed.
I love this. The thing that I had as a takeaway from this is how I would never, ever want the job of being the guy who hands them the replacement lance. That looks terrifying. Oh my God.
Also, they keep getting shoved and punched and pushed out of the way.
And like, or he could just like kind of not see you and the horse runs you over, or the horse steps wrong, or the lance that he's tossing away gets you, or he picks the lance up from you and swings it the wrong way and you get whacked in the side of the head. Like,
I wouldn't want to be anywhere near any of this, quite frankly.
Truly.
I, again, cannot get over how easily the crowd accepted these people getting their brains bashed in.
Yeah.
Towards the end of it, it just devolves into just, just savagery. Mm-hmm. That is not like part of the... I think maybe too, my misconception about the tournaments is I continually phrase them as a game. And it is not a game. They
aren't all like this. I think that the fighting to the death, which is what seems to be happening in some of these cases, is not necessarily standard.
Okay. What does Raina say? She said something about how like none of these knights have been to war, and so they're all like basically they haven't nut in forever. And that's why when they get here, things get out of control.
That's it. And the guy who asks for her favor calls her the queen who never was. And Otto leans over to Viserys and is just like, you could have gotten his tongue out for that. And
yeah.
I mean, I could. What the fuck is wrong with you, man? He doesn't say that, but that's the kind of vibe I get. Right. Just, and look, I'm picking my battles. Chill.
When they tell us that the sort of prologue, I guess, prologue, whatever, at the beginning of the episode, when we're getting that sort of short history lesson, and we find out how she was kind of stepped over for Viserys to become king. And the old voiceover tells us that she's given that sort of nickname, the queen who never was. Mm-hmm. I thought that was like a disparaging comment, that people called her that, like sort of in derision. But this moment, apparently calling her that is an insult to Viserys. Or am I reading this wrong?
I think it could be taken either way. I think it's one of those things that it can be weaponized in either direction depending on the context. So the way this guy, he's asking for her favor, and there's a certain brashness in him saying it in front of the king this way. It's clearly meant to be like on her side.
Right.
But I would not be surprised at all if somebody's shit talking her and says the same thing.
Because she's definitely pleased that he says that, like right out loud in front of God and everybody. And so is Corlys. They both have a moment like, Oh, she also, she thanks him and she says cousin. So the Baratheons and the Targaryens share a bloodline.
They intermingled with marriage. That's actually Alyssa, who is the original C-section. She was married to a Baratheon in that.
Oh, all right.
So yeah, the Baratheons that's part of where Robert gets his claim, Right.
I vaguely remember that from Song of Ice and Fire books, but it feels like, I don't know, I think I felt like it was a very tenuous claim on Robert's part, and I think I kind of assumed that people were like, okay, yeah, he's claiming it, but we all know. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That shit's a real reach, right?
Yes.
So I guess somehow having this moment where it's very clear, I was just like, oh shit, he wasn't full of shit.
Yeah. And just for the note too, we were asking what the guard's name is. Sir Harold.
That's disappointing.
Sir Harold, played by Graham McTavish.
Now there's a name.
This man is so fine. There's a.
You up on the IMDb?
Send you a link to.
I was getting ready to say
him, where like zaddy vibes hard, but I really hope that he has more to do. I just really like him. This dude, in the books, I don't recall much about him, to be perfectly honest. So they could kind of do whatever, I guess. All right. So we have been going so long. We are going to have to speed it up a little.
Okay. But I don't have a counter in this app, so I have no idea. I have no idea how long we've been talking.
An hour and 56 minutes.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
Not feel that long.
Yeah.
But the whole thing with the tourney basically devolves into Sir Criston Cole versus Daemon. And it is a pretty intense fight between the two of them and ends in a draw, which I am pretty certain isn't actually how it happens in the book, but
it's a weird draw. He forces Daemon to yield, and Daemon doesn't actually ever say the words.
No.
But Cole wins.
Because if he said yield, it couldn't be a draw, right?
I don't know. I just felt like Daemon was like, I don't yield. We can stop fighting, but I don't yield. That's just how I took it. I took it as simply as that. Because after it's done, he stands up, and he's the only one standing, and he goes and asks for the favor. Daemon asked for a favor from Alicent after he has fucked up Hightower's son, by the way.
Oh, man.
On purpose. When he goes to pick his opponents, the first one he picks is Hightower's son and fucks him all up.
I could not stop laughing. The look that Otto and the king exchange when he picks his son. The king is just like, well, you know how he is. And Corlys off to the side with his eyebrows is just like, shit, we're about to see it now.
And like, I don't know the rules, but I feel like Daemon cheated in that because he basically just goes for the horse's legs, and that's how he wins that one.
I'm watching it right now, so I'll chime in on that in a moment. But
and I would have thought the entire crowd would have booed him because that is like not very good sportsmanship, I would think. Then low-key dishonorable. But everybody's like, well, you know, all bets are off in the tournament. What you gonna do?
Sure. Because the first hit is they go to each other's shields.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, Otto is quite proud of his son for that. Because apparently Daemon has a rep. So the fact that he held his own and they get to a second round. But yeah, he drives down. I just saw what you're saying. In front of the horse and sort of like trips it. I was thinking that he like broke the horse, and maybe the horse did break its legs, but it's very clear. I don't know what the rules are, and if that is totally outside of the rules.
Clearly there are no rules.
It feels like very Thunderdome right now. Otto is upset in a way like he's worried for his son, but there is not an outrage like this guy broke the rules.
Not at all. Nobody is like
maybe okay.
And after he does this, Daemon goes and asks Alicent for her favor. Meanwhile, he's looking Otto dead in the face the whole time. It is just this motherfucker.
Yeah, he cannot help himself.
Oh my god. But and then when Cole wins, he asks Rhaenyra for her favor.
Mm-hmm. And Cole's fine.
Yeah, he's alright.
Mm-hmm.
He is all right, and they're all like, no one knows who he is. Well, no, Alicent knows who he is because at the beginning, Rhaenyra's like, "Oh, a mystery knight." She's like, "Nah, that's Cole, so and so from such and such." But then when he takes off his helm, they're like, "Oh, he's Dornish," and I don't know if that's supposed to be really significant because we don't get a lot of people from Dorne at this time.
The relationship between Dorne and the Crown is really not awesome at this time. So I think that's part of it. It's just like the Dornish and the rest of Westeros pretty much have been going at it hammer and tongs for like decades. And they just can't quite ever either of them like beat the other adequately enough for a decisive victory.
Right. I think you told me reading the books that Dorne was never like fully conquered.
Right. Yeah.
But and they're kind of like part of the Seven Kingdoms, but in a very like tenuous way.
Yeah, that's why they have like a King of Dorne. It's not really supposed to be a Prince of Dorne, but like none of the other areas in Westeros, the whole like declaration of king in the north is treason. Like that was a big deal because they don't do that. Dorne still does that. They have their own whole shit going on, and they've basically made a deal with the throne that like, all right, fine, we'll be part of Westeros, but like not. Is that good enough? And by then the Crown was so fucking tired. They were like, yeah, fine.
Just call it a fucking draw. Exactly. There's your draw.
Did you get that picture I just sent you?
Oh, hang on. Let me grab my phone. Oh, yep, there it is.
You have sent me that woo from the 90s thing from YouTube, and then I sent you Greg McTavish right after. I feel like they do really go well together.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
See, I do see what you're saying.
Oh. He just does it for me, that's all. Don't usually go for him that much older, but he kind of defies that. It's fine.
He's like a Targaryen, the rules don't apply. He's an exception. So, all right. So we have the birth and the death, and then it goes right to the funeral.
Yeah.
From the like it's intercut her, screaming and dying in the joust, and then it cuts right to this funeral, which seems to be far and away from the city. Like, are they in Dragonstone? Does it matter?
I think they're still at the Red Keep, but they're just kind of far out from the actual castle. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think, and they're all standing around, and we see Aemma's body all wrapped up on the pyre, and then there's the reveal that the son didn't make it, because you see a little baby body also. Then that's how we find out, how that went. And Daemon is telling her that she has to kind of step up, and she is really feeling, he's like, your father's going to need you now more than ever. And she is like, I hope for the moment that he had a son, he felt the happiness that he's never had, that I never provided him. Mm-hmm. And we get what I thought was just a really, really neat moment of watching this dragon come down, and she yells, Dracarys. Mm-hmm. Which is so funny because it's such an iconic moment from the original series that you forget that that's literally just a word. Yeah. It means a thing, and anybody can say it.
Indeed. Yep. The original. How it started.
And the way that moment, when she says it, it is not like a big, powerful moment like we got on the first show, right? This is a really emotional. She kind of chokes on the word a bit, Yeah. It's such a different tone. But I really like the scene. I also like the CGI or whatever for the dragon was really cool. Like seeing it up close like that and watching it walk down, It was pretty cool.
There are people standing across from that dragon though when it shoots the fire, and I am not anywhere near across from that dragon when it shoots fire. It's not happening.
They are like really close, aren't they? And I'm trying to remember. This is such a, I can't believe it. Do we see Daemon's dragon in this episode?
Yeah, he leaves on it once he's basically told to get the fuck out.
Right. And his dragon looks completely different.
Yeah.
Which is really
supposed to be like deformed, basically.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh. It's got a cool name, too. It's like Cararax or some shit. What is it?
That may very well be it. I don't remember. I'm going to look it up. But that it just sounds so completely pulled out of your ass. That is the name. I'm never going to give up. That's hilarious.
All the dragons sound like cleansers I keep under my sink.
Oh God, that is what it sounds like. I hate this.
So then after the funeral, they call an emergency meeting of the council while this man is still grieving the death of his wife and son.
Caraxi.
Oh, I was close.
You were very close. Sorry. Yeah.
Because succession.
Correct.
Has to be dealt with. Has to be dealt with right now. God damn it. Right now.
This is one of those things that didn't hit right for me because this man watched his wife get cut open in front of him because he chose the heir and was letting this happen. But then they're like, we need to figure this out. And that's the whole reason why he did what he did. And he then just is like, my wife is dead, and screams at them for daring to ask about this right now. Right. You are the, like, you have made it very clear how much you care.
Yeah.
And that takes precedence over your wife already. You don't get to be like this right now. I'm sorry. You just don't.
He says also, which is really, when you think about it in the larger context, which I guess maybe it makes sense if you want to give him more credit than maybe he deserves, or rather the writers more credit than they may deserve. One of the things he says to them when he's in the middle of like, how dare you, at this time, he says, I will not be forced to choose between my daughter and my brother, even though you just made a choice.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if in this moment it's supposed to be, after having made this decision not too long ago that, was difficult for him to make and ended up fruitless, he is now in this moment, at least in this moment, he is unable to make a choice. Like he's is low key too traumatized that he can't make a choice. Like he's afraid to, because he can't go through losing again, losing someone. I was wondering if you were ever going to use anything. All that time we spent selecting sound files and you hadn't used a single one.
So guys, Rashawn and I are recording via Zencaster, which is actually what we used to do like season 6 of Game of Thrones or something. It might have been the final season. GarageBand has been like ruining our computer performance, and that's part of what sent her spiraling into the Apple Store. Mm-hmm. So this has like a built-in sound effect thing, and I am going to use it. And now, I forgot because I'm not used to having it, but just be ready, guys, because in the future, it's going to be a lot. So I just hope you're all ready for that.
Now to be clear, are you booing me or are you booing him?
I'm booing him.
Okay.
I'm booing him. Just like basically the whole, I'm so traumatized from the decision that I made that I can't possibly be, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No. You
don't
were
buy
holding her hand and assuring her everything was going to be fine while you watched her bleed to death.
So no sympathy for his grief.
No,
you're not here for it.
I understand that I'm being unfair. I'll just make that clear. I am not being nice about this, and I don't care.
You heard it here, folks. First, folks.
You heard it here, folks. First. I just don't. Like, especially how can I choose between my daughter and my brother?
Yeah, I will not choose.
That's your entire job. That's all of it. You just don't get to be mad at your counsel and whine.
Yeah.
When that's all that you have to figure out is about choosing between people you love. That's the entire thing.
And he does. He does. Like, in the next
Eventually.
scene or two, like we end up getting there, but he just doesn't get there in this moment. The way this is shot, it feels to me like this is the night of the funeral. I don't know if it really is, but it feels like it's the night of the funeral. Like they all just got home. Mm-hmm. So I am actually of the mind of get the fuck out of my face with this meeting right now. Mm-hmm. Even though he is complicit in, in how he handled dealing with his wife as she was dying, trying to, birth this son, I'm still like, get the fuck out of my face with this meeting. I just got home from the funeral.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the other thing that they force him to talk about is all the reasons why it can't be Damon. But no one at the table is talking about how it should be Rhaenyra?
Yeah.
Flew right out of my head.
No, it's hard too because then there's Rhaenys. Their names are so similar. Yeah. And there's multiple Aemons, multiple Viseryses.
It's a lot. It's a whole lot. But so they're not putting her up either. So when he says I choose between my daughter and my brother, I feel like nobody was even talking about your daughter though. Mm-hmm. And one of them, I don't know if it's I think it's Corliss, is like, there are other options. Why are you just acting like these are the only two? Mm. And then I forget who it is. It's Hightower or maybe it's Strong. It's someone. It's like, oh, like your wife, Corliss?
Yeah.
Already Hello, ma'am. Hello.
Oh, there's a cat here.
Oh, I had the audacity to shut the door a little bit. So that's exactly what that was.
If there's anything you need to do to ensure a cat comes hang out with you, it's do stuff to make it like you don't want them to hang out with you, and they will just find a way.
It was like not even 30 seconds after I shut that door a little bit. But yeah, so already the bodies are barely, I was going to say the bodies are barely cold, but we just watched them get incinerated by dragon fire, so that doesn't work. And already the discussion of who is going to be named, who's going to be in the line of succession is like fracturing this council, right? So it becomes very easy to imagine how quickly this indecision, this thing that hasn't been settled could spread and really fracture in much bigger ways, you know? So for that, I kind of enjoyed the scene. Just like, God damn, it does not take much at all for them to all suddenly be scrambling and like, you know, putting out, you know, working for their own agendas and everything. Like it doesn't take any time at all.
Yeah, there's also something else going on here, which is that Damon's listening to it all.
Girl, he is.
He is at the meeting. He wants to hear what they say when he's not there.
Oh, he's about when George leaves the briefcase.
Oh my God.
So you can hear what everybody says about him.
But yeah, there's a moment here where Viserys says, "Are you really worried about my brother trying to kill me and take the fucking crown? He doesn't want the crown." And I'm like, baby, he was sitting on it already.
He gets it so wrong.
He is very wrong. And Daemon seems to find it endearing because he says something like he lacks the patience for it. He has ambition, but not for that.
Yeah, he's impulsive, but not like, you know. And Daemon is listening like, have we ever even met? Good God. Yeah, I don't know if I understand yet whether Viserys just really being so off base about his brother's motivations and his brother's ambition, if that is a blind spot due to a family relationship, or is it an indictment of his overall ability to see people clearly? Like, I don't know yet. Like, is Viserys just not really good at assessing people's characters and assessing what they want from him? Or if this is a blind spot, I don't know yet. There's a moment with I can't remember who it's with, but like there's a moment at some point where Viserys is talking about how great Hightower is. I think it's with Daemon. Daemon is like trying to warn him, right?
Okay.
And Viserys is going on and on about like how loyal a friend and servant Hightower is. That doesn't seem 100% right. So maybe it is Viserys. That's unfortunate. What do you think?
I love hearing you talk to yourself about this. I mean, so when you say maybe it is Viserys,
well,
are you saying that he's like the weak link in the?
Like, yeah, like maybe he's just not seeing people. Like, because what started me talking to myself was trying to figure out whether I believed Viserys has a particular blind spot with Daemon, and that's why he's so off the mark, or whether or not Viserys just isn't very good at
he's
reading,
the problem,
right?
Yeah,
so I was waffling, and then my brain went to Hightower and how he seems to. I don't have proof yet, but I feel like Viserys is wrong about Hightower as well, and I'm basing that on the way he's sending his daughter in for comfort.
This is the thing: is that I feel like two things can be true. Otto could want what's best for the realm and be trying to give the king what he believes is good advice, and also be ready to strike while the iron is hot to get some extra power. I feel like he could be doing both. I'm not saying, because obviously they could do all kinds of things with him, and they may not, like, there may be nothing that is recognizable past a certain point. Who knows? But I am just saying, like, him sending his daughter in doesn't automatically make him a lying, like, grasper. It just is the way that people are going to play when they realize there's an opening.
Yeah.
And
The way
I'm
he
not even
sends
sure I can
her,
blame anybody for that.
it's him saying, and maybe wear one of your mother dresses for me,
Yeah.
which is really like the nail in the coffin about what his intentions are in this moment. I was willing to be like, it could be anything but that, you know? And the show was like, no, ma'am, it's that.
I mean, so is it about the fact that she's specifically dressing up for him? That's the part, or is it that it was his wife's clothes?
Well, it's not just that it's his wife's clothes, but my takeaway was that I want the king to see you as a woman, not a little girl. Agreed. So wear one of your mother's dresses.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, fair.
Yeah. I also love this little model that Viserys is building when she goes to visit him, by the way. I don't know what it is. My first thought was like,
you say this little model. That shit's the size of my bed.
Is it?
It is huge. This thing.
Beautiful, right? Is it supposed to be? Do we know what it is? Like at first I was like, oh, it's just a model of King's Landing. And I was like, oh, maybe it's a model of like Old Valeria or something. Or it could be anything. It doesn't look like anything to me.
I'm looking at it and I think it is supposed to be King's Landing, but I'm not sure. I think so.
I love that he has a little craft.
It's interesting what they have done with Viserys too, because like, so a lot of people know him from Hot Fuzz, where he's a cop. Amazing duo.
Yeah, I only know him from Hot Fuzz and In America are the only two things I've ever really watched.
Never saw In America.
Oh, it's pretty good. It's really good.
But in Hot Fuzz, he has this mustache, and leading to one of the like best line deliveries that I repeat and Owen repeats so much. He has this mustache. He's drinking from a foamy mug of beer. He sits up and the guy sitting across from him, he's got all this foam. And the guy says, you got a mustache. And he just goes, I know. And looks like disgusted. Like, why would you say that? And I was so sad when I saw what they were going to do with Viserys' look, because his look in the book is a mustachioed kind of goofballish type.
Oh, really?
He has a very strong Robert Baratheon energy to me.
I don't think I've ever pictured any Targaryen with like bushy hair or bushy like facial features, mustaches or anything. And Jaehaerys, at the beginning of this, I think they gave him like a beard. Yeah. But that felt very much like, oh, he has a beard because he's old. Not like I just rock a beard. You know what I mean? It's a very different kind of thing.
Viserys has a beard. It's just trimmed really, really short.
Oh yeah, I don't count that. I'm talking about like,
you're talking about like a real
hair,
big bushy beard,
like fucking Robert Baratheon type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's got like he's supposed to have gotten kind of fat in his older age. He's not even really old, and he has a big mustache, and he really likes to party. And he's just meant to be like extremely generous and open-handed with people. Yeah.
Oh, that's a very different tone.
I felt like I was a little let down because I was looking forward to seeing that version of a Targaryen, and it felt like they just decided to sort of have him be dignified because he's a Targaryen in a way that I just was like, oh, well, I wanted to see Goofy Targaryen though. Yeah. Okay.
I wonder if because the show is picking up right at the middle, like right at him losing his wife and the son and all that, if the writers were like, oh, we can't make him that because the part of the story that we're telling is so like basically kind of morbid and like a little bit of a bummer.
Maybe. Or I could just see them doing like a test with him in the mustache and being like, oh God, we can't do it. You just don't look right.
Also, can you, all right, I was about to get us really sidetracked. I'm not even going to do that.
What?
I was going to ask, like, trying to picture, like, a silvery, mustache beard situation with, like, their silvery hair. Just, like, I don't know. What I'm picturing in my head is really weird, and I know it's not right, but I can't make it be right. So it's... Like if I saw an illustration, it would make like much more sense. But right now, my brain is basically putting like fine white silver hair, but just putting it around your mouth.
Okay, I'm gonna send you this illustration. And that way you can see exactly what he is supposed to. He's literally got his hands on his belly like Santa.
He does look like Santa.
Sorry, everybody. That, unfortunately, is the spot where we got cut off. Where we were talking about how much Viserys looked like Santa. Cool. Great content. Apologies. We'll see you next week.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.